I wanted to test the different levels of diffusion grid cloth on my SNAPBAG LED Panel 1x1 softbox that I use on my LUPO SuperPanel. I also have the Snap Grid for this light, so we'll also test how that affects things. I'm using my son as my model, and here he is with the test light turned off. For interest, I've added the LUPO DayLED 1000 as a kicker light, and I have the LUPO DayLED 2000 coming in through the window, putting a natural pattern on the background. The DayLED 2000 is daylight, 5600 Kelvin, and the other two lights are set to tungsten, 3200 Kelvin. I did shoot this at night, so there'll be no other light pollution. Let's look at the light with no diffusion cloth on it. I have my SuperPanel dimmed down to 10% power. The light is definitely on the hard side with visible hot spots on the forehead and cheek. Now I put on the quarter diffusion grid cloth. The SuperPanel is now at 27% power. You can see that the subject's face is softer with the hot spots now gone. Notice how the diffusion cloth spreads the light out, lighting up more of the room. If you don't want this look, then you'll need to put in the Snap Grid, which we'll take a look at in a minute. Switching to the half diffusion grid cloth incrementally softens up your subject. The difference is a little subtle, but it's there. To compensate for the heavier diffusion, the SuperPanel is now at 46%. Next is the full diffusion grid cloth, which continues to soften our subject. The small eye bags that were there are now gone. Of course, if we had an older subject, this would be much more obvious. The SuperPanel is now at 64%. Finally, the magic cloth really softens up our subject. The magic cloth actually bounces the light back into the softbox and then back out again, which gives an even illumination across the width of your softbox, eliminating any hot spots on your grid cloth. However, it does eat up more light. So the SuperPanel is now just below 100% at 98%. Looking at them side by side, you can really see the progression of the softening of the subject. Now let's test the subject with the Snap Grid. First, let's look at the grid only with no diffusion cloth. The SuperPanel is at 15% versus the 10% it was without the grid. When we go to quarter diffusion grid cloth and the Snap Grid, you'll see that the background drum set isn't getting nearly the spill on it that it was getting before, while the subject's light gets softer. The SuperPanel is now at 37% versus the 27% without the grid. As we go to half diffusion grid cloth and the Snap Grid, the subject's lighting continues to get softer with a minimal spill. The SuperPanel is now at 76%. The full diffusion grid cloth and Snap Grid really cuts down the light. I had to put the SuperPanel at 100% plus move it 6 inches closer. Because the light is closer, the drums on the right actually go a little darker, but you do get a nice soft subject. When I switched to the magic cloth and Snap Grid, I had to move the light in a total of 2 feet closer to the subject to get the same light output, which makes the background on the right continue to fall off. This achieves a good moody look while keeping your subject soft. Just keep in mind that in this setup, the light is right at the edge of the frame, which could limit any camera movement. Here's a side-by-side of the Snap Grids with the different levels of diffusion. Notice how the subject gets progressively softer. Here are all the test shots with different levels of diffusion with and without the Snap Grid. It's always good to have options in your lighting toolbox so you can deliver on different moods and feels depending on what's called for in your project. This is why with my snap bags, I always carry the full range of diffusion grid cloths and snap grids.